Gareth, let's talk a bit of MMA. Over the weekend, I was pained to see my Nigerian brother Israel Adesanya getting stopped in the second round by Imavov. It was very weird to see Izzy, by the way, on a normal UFC fight night, not a numbered event. I mean, you're gonna have to go back years for the last time Izzy appeared on a normal fight night. But Izzy getting stopped in the second round. That's 4 defeats now in his last five. That's 3 defeats in a row. Obviously lost to Sean Strickland, lost to Dricus, beat Pereira, but then lost to Pereira before that win over Pereira. Um, is that it in terms of Izzy in a title run? Like, can you ever see Izzy somehow finding his way back to a middleweight title fight, or is it just now Izzy having fun fights, or maybe even Izzy calling it quits?
Well, it was the fall from grace, being KO'd by Imavov in Saudi Arabia is a sign. Used to be 3 strikes and out in the UFC, didn't it? When you lost 3 in a row, you were gone. I mean, Dan Hardy broke that mold, by the way. He lost 4 in a row, but they liked him so much that he kept on in there. I think I saw Darren Till over the weekend saying, "My mate should retire now." I think it was Darren Till. It was certainly someone prominent in the MMA world saying, he's a great guy. He's also lost the needle. He's now mates with Robert Whittaker. All the signs are there that it's time to pack up the cap. And I think he was such a formidable stand-up fighter. He never really developed his ground game. And I think that's, and when he came to the UFC, he was already a formidable fighter in terms of kickboxing, Muay Thai. And I think in MMA, he was already so well formed and he won the world title that I'm sure he's worked on his groundwork, but it's not at the level that it needs to be.
No, it's not. And look, I mean, it's almost sad to see your favorite fighters lose and lose like this. But age takes no prisoners, does it? I mean, Izzy's 35 now. He's had, someone pointed out as well, which I think was fantastic. I think it was either Michael Bisping or Daniel Cormier. I can't remember who said it, but they said a lot of people just look at Izzy's UFC career. I mean, Izzy's body has been through a lot in his kickboxing career, where he had numerous fights. I think nearly 80 fights in kickboxing, let alone the UFC career. Then you have to go through fight camps as well. Izzy's body's been through a lot. And I just wonder if his body's finally started to break down because of age, because of, again, the sparring wars in order to get into shape, and because of the fights he's having. I just wonder if that could be that. I don't think Izzy is going to want to drop down a level and be low on a card in order to build himself back up again to be the star.
I'm looking at his record that goes back to 2010 in kickboxing. 15 years in the sport. He's 35 now. Like you say, 80 fights, and then in the UFC, he's had how many is it now? In the UFC, he's now had 29 mixed martial arts fights. Anyway, 100 professional boxing, kickboxing, and martial arts. He's had 115 fights, Eddie. That's an incredible. I know they have a lot of fights in kickboxing, but he's just come to the end. The body's battered. He's done what he needed to do. I think, as you rightly said, Nigerian out of the Antipodes, one of the 3 kings in the modern times of African MMA, with Francis Ngannou, Kamaru Usman, and himself. They were considered the 3 kings. I hope they'll always be thought of as the 3 kings. Maybe Kamaru Usman's had his time as well. Francis Ngannou is still in there. He was brilliant recently in his fight in the PFL, but it probably is time to hang up. Much as I don't want to retire anyone, this is very much a young man's sport, even more than boxing. And it probably is time to call it, good night.
Yeah. Look, in terms of the middleweight greats, there's only one man that I think jumps above him, and that's the great Anderson Silva. So he'll go down as one of the all-time greats in the sport. And that's all you can do. Go in there, show what you can do. He did that. He defended that middleweight strap many times. He made loads of money. He had that amazing moment against Pereira. And not just the moment of knocking Pereira out, but his post-fight speech with Joe Rogan still gives me chills when I think about it. And I think the UFC have a bigger problem here. And I've said this to you for a while. I think the lack of superstars now in the UFC is alarming in terms of just names, because Izzy was one of those superstars. And you look down the roster now, and it's thin. It's very thin at numerous weight classes. So I think Dana White's got a bit of an issue in terms of finding that new star as well. One of the stars, or the biggest star we've ever seen, is Conor McGregor. In the headlines again this week, and I don't know if you've seen the video of Conor. It looks like he's in sort of it almost looks a bit like a casino, like the walkway of a casino, and someone shouts at Khabib, you know, rather than just Conor walking on, or his handlers just pushing him on, like, ignore that guy. Conor turns around, does a beeline for the guy, and spits on the guy's face. And I just think Conor's out of control. It's got to the stage now. I think he's out of control.
Well, it looks like the last video I saw this morning was Conor with a DJ somewhere and getting his proper 12 and doing that in the nightclub. It's the Conor McGregor tour now, isn't it? He's no longer a fighter, really. I mean, he's involved with bare knuckle. He's promoting that. He says he's going to fight. Who won the other day and said he's going to fight him?
Jeremy Stephens.
Jeremy Stephens, indeed, who was always going to be a good bare knuckle fighter. And I think, you know, Conor, like you say, probably out of control is a good description, but he's certainly just on the road, it looks like, all the time, enjoying himself and partying. And, you know, you can't condone the behaviour that you just mentioned.
Even his back
Yes.
and forth with Paul Hughes. Obviously, Paul Hughes fought one of the Nurmagomedov brothers.
Usman.
Hughes,
No,
after the fight, you know, said something. Yeah, Usman, apologies. And he said something to Khabib. Connor's picked that up. And even the back and forth with Paul Hughes, I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, can someone just remove his mobile phone or something from him? Can he just go on silent for a week? Go on mute for a week? Like, surely there's someone around him that can just say, Conor, just stop.
No, but the problem is there's a million mobile phones on him, whatever he does. So, and I think this is part of the, you know, the notorious character that we have all the time. You know, it's been a very rough few months for him. I don't think he's ever going to fight again. I think Dana White said that recently. I can't see him ever fighting again in the UFC. I can't even see him ever fighting again.
First time Dana said that. I thought that was interesting as well, because Dana's always been about, like, you know, he's coming back and, you know, he's going to go into the testing pool and this and that. But the first time in a couple of years where Dana's actually probably seen what's happened, what's going on with him, and said, no, he's unlikely to.
I don't think he'll ever fight again. I really don't. I'm trying to see the
last time he fought?
36. He's 37 in July, you know?
Yeah, and we said Izzy was old at 35. Yeah. And Izzy's been an active fighter, fighting the best. And Izzy, who looks like lives the life, can't get through those guys. What chance does Conor have? We need to just close the chapter on this Conor McGregor.
4 fights in the last 7 years.
And just
4. But he is a good opponent, in my view, for Jake Paul. Maybe even not.
Jake Paul would kill him in boxing. Jake Paul would take his head off. Jake Paul, who's been boxing legitimately now, for the past 4 or 5 years, training. You know, Jake Paul's too big, too strong, and will just beat the brakes of Conor.
Is there a case, and I'm just throwing this out there finally today, for saying that, like in 2016, he was still flying high, became a champ, lightweight and featherweight champion. He beat Eddie Alvarez, and I think it was the first fight ever for the UFC in New York. I was there that night, 2016, Madison Square Garden. Is there a case for saying that all that money he earned against Floyd Mayweather soon afterwards ruined him?
Yeah.
Too much money, too much fame.
Shame, isn't it? Too much, too soon. Too much, too soon. Yeah, it's a shame, is it? You ask for these things, you dream about them, you beg for them. When they come, you don't know how to handle them. And he went from earning good money with the UFC to just life-changing money in one night. And the fame it came with, not just the money, the fame of now everyone in the world knowing you because you fought Floyd.
But are we projecting that he's not happy? Because he might actually be happy.
he doesn't look like a happy man to me. And again, look, we're only going on with the footage that we see with him every day that comes out. But I'm yet to see something where he looks like he's.
I think he looks happy when he's with his family.
All right. Anyway, on that bombshell, we'll end it. Always good to talk a bit of MMA. Make sure you subscribe to the MMA YouTube channel on talkSPORT for loads more content coming your way.